world wants you weak. There's a coordinated effort by governments, media, healthcare, education, and more to destroy men of strength entirely. This agenda slowly seduces men into weakness and compliance. They become addicted to comfort, mentally weak, and ultimately reliant on the state. But embedded within the spirit of every man, there is a deep desire to be strong and independent, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually as well, to become the fathers, husbands, and community leaders that God designed us to be. My name is Jeremy Sladen, and I understand the struggle firsthand. As a former professional athlete, I found myself being led down a path of confusion and weakness after my sports career ended. Slowly, I became addicted to comfort. I was sluggish, out of shape, and disconnected from God. My spiritual life was in disarray, and my marriage was at risk. I knew things had to change, and after a big wake-up call, I embarked on a personal reset that transformed my mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. After my own personal transformation, I witnessed countless men trapped in similar circumstances, targeted by a culture aiming for their irrelevance. This led me to launch the Warrior Mind, Body, and Soul program. Warrior MBS is a 70-day competitive experience that has been designed from the ground up to unleash the strong man within you. It includes a comprehensive eating plan, a personally customized workout plan based on your goals, soul-building operations to strengthen your faith, and a brotherhood of like-minded Christian men who are with you in the fight. This experience is crafted from the ground up to help you get your mojo back. Here's what others are saying about Warrior MBS.
The program was amazing for me. Just for muscle toning, for overall fitness.
Great diet, great soul building ops, great people you get to meet.
One of the things I love is that I'm surrounded by like-minded men who love the Lord, men who want to be good leaders, not only in their home, but also in the community for which they live.
It's changed my life. I think it has potential to change yours. I highly encourage that you join.
The world needs men who are strong, compassionate, and resilient, and it needs them now more than ever. Join me on this journey and become a warrior in mind, body, and soul. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today on Jay Slay Made in the USA, where we explore truth, expose deception, and inspire courage. And speaking of inspiring courage, I've got a fantastic guest on the line today. And I'll get to who he is in just a moment. But I want to say this. Many times in this life, we get confused. There's a lot of clutter. There's a lot of things that are, not really specific to our purpose that can get in the way of seeing our purpose clearly. And one of the things that I've always done as a practice, maybe not always, but I try to do it is when I feel that way, when I feel a little bit lost, I'll ask myself a question. If I had 2 weeks to live, what would I do? And it kind of prioritizes things naturally. Like when you can see, the end of your life in front of you, it brings a lot of perspective. And my guest today is Chad Hawley, who had his own, in a sense, near-death experience. I'll let him describe what that was, but it led him into his purpose. And I want to pull up a scripture real quick as we get into this. Actually, I don't have it in front of me, so I'll get to it sometime during the show. But Chad, like I said, he was facing it, and it made him ask some deep questions of himself, of God, and I think that he's going to really bring a lot of truth today and perspective to the audience. So, guys, welcome, Chad Hawley. Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Jeremy, I love that intro, and I love that question that you asked. If I had 2 weeks to live, what would I do? I had a similar approach in my life, and so I love that, and I love what you're doing with MBX. Men need to be men. Men need to have purpose. Men need to have strength. And one of the missions I have is to bring example of how to have courage, and we need men to be leaders, and so I'm really proud of what you're doing. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks a lot, Chad. And, for the people that don't know, your platform, and we'll get to it, soon enough, is Nexus Mountain Network. And that is what is actually hosting the Warrior MBS program this time around. Fantastic platform, and thank you for all you're doing for me as well. I really appreciate it.
Well, I love what you're doing, so it's great to partner with you.
Well, let's get into it, my man. So, we met at the NRB conference, and it was kind of a cool time because I was looking to get away from Slack, which is, I think it's owned by Microsoft, and they're cracking down more and more on free speech. And we're a group of Christian guys who are willing to explore things and tell the truth, not only about direct scripture and our own things from a spiritual perspective, but also things going on in the world. And I with these conversations, I began to hear more and more about Slack actually kicking people off. And we were connected there at NRB, National Religious Broadcasters Conference. I think it was in Orlando. And you said, hey, I've got a platform that is for Christian people who want to connect with others who are in a similar avenue, who have similar interests, almost like a Christian version of LinkedIn, which is really cool. So what led you originally, and we're going to get into your story here, obviously, but what led you to developing that whole thing?
Well, the story is everything that led me to it. But in short, in terms of the technology, you're right. Right now, everything's being censored. I think it's going to get worse. It depends on who's in leadership, how fast that will actually go. And people like you and others who actually have something valuable to say have been saying truth for quite some time, and then they lose their followers, and they put the amount of effort that it takes to get followers and to put out content. It is tough and it's exhausting, and it's not often rewarded financially or otherwise. So to see them actually shut you down or put algorithms in place that people don't even know that this exists. And so they don't know there's algorithms out there to censor certain things, and you just start seeing this plummeting, and I've seen it myself. And so, but the good thing for me, it wasn't just out of demand. It was out of a story where I thought I was going to die. And that story inspired me to move forward. I never really set out to build technology. I set out to build a network that God called me to build.
That's so cool, man. And, speaking of the censorship thing real quick, the people that need to hear those truths that you're talking about the most are the ones that, like you said, they don't even know that those algorithms exist. It's the people that are putting themselves out there that it's so apparent. I've worked very hard to build a following, like you said, but like yesterday, I put something out about 9/11. They put the blurry screen over it. They gave me a little tag at the bottom saying this is not true. And, all you got to do is like research a little bit, and you'll see like what they're saying is false. What I'm saying is true. But the thing is, when they do that, they crush your reach. They make sure that you cannot reach anyone. Even though I've got almost 60,000 followers on Instagram, my following posts, my posts were getting about 30,000 views per post. Then they put the blurry screen on one thing that they found, and now it's about 200. So it's crazy the amount of power and control they have. And I do want to talk a little bit about your experience in pharma, because that was its own version, I believe. I mean, not censorship directly per se, but a version of cancel culture. Tell us about that.
Well, in terms of pharma, I had 20-year experience in the pharmaceutical industry. I had prominent roles in sales, marketing, management, training. I was the national sales trainer for the second largest pharmaceutical company in the world. And I also taught pharmacology for that company. So I knew how a product got to FDA approval. I had studied it and I had taught it. And I knew my industry knew what too. In fact, they knew better than I did. But I knew what they were doing with the vaccine mandate was wrong. And so I knew that they didn't go through the proper protocols, the safety, effectiveness. I knew about all the different phases of studies, the statistical significance to get confidence intervals, to then start these trials, to determine dosing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so when I saw them come through with the mandate, I knew something was terribly wrong. Not only did I have an exemption, a medical exemption and a religious exemption, but there's a third thing that can also be true at the same time, is I didn't believe in it, and I knew it was risking my life if I took it. And so I had those things. I had those exemptions, which I should have never been in place anyway. It was unconstitutional. So I began to stand up. I began to do it small. And I'm like, wait a minute. I began to question. And then I began to talk to my coworkers and colleagues, and none of them agreed with the mandate either. Some of them were actually saying, well, I want to keep my job, so I'm just going to take it. I had direct coworkers take this vaccine, and they ended up in the ER with myocarditis. young male. I had a guy that worked directly for me, and his doctor told him not to take it, and he took
Really?
it.
Huh.
And so what he doesn't know is I fought behind the scenes for him, knowing that it caused a lifelong illness and threatened his life because they wanted him to do it and they mandated him to do it. And so I began to fight and fight harder. I saw it personally, and I was like, you know what? This is something that is wrong. And so I began to challenge scientifically. I began to challenge medical officers. I began to communicate with CEOs and be able to like say, whoa, what's going on here? I know what I'm saying is right. Prove me wrong. They had nothing.
Quick question on that, Chad. When you say that you said I knew these different aspects of the vaccine, it wasn't properly tested. A lot of people, doctors that didn't do their research, and people in pharma industry, that they may have landed where you landed, but it took them some time to go back and say, okay, something feels off. Now I'm going to go do some research. So let's say, was there a period of confusion or not knowing where you had to go back and look at things, or did you actually from the jump know this thing is a plot and a plan?
Well, from the jump, I was confident.
Okay.
Now, what I will say is just because I'm saying these things doesn't mean everyone had bad intentions. In fact,
Sure.
A lot of my coworkers, in fact, in my time in the pharmaceutical industry, I had the most amazing coworkers, amazing teammates, amazing people, just good all around people. But they were also trusting, and they only went to certain levels. And then so I knew from the get-go, and my confidence only grew. The evidence, not only evidence scientifically, but the evidence of, wait a minute, all my coworkers got the vaccine and they're all getting COVID. And so I began to bring that up. And then so they kept pushing and they started doing mask stuff. And then the industry started talking about, oh, well, then you got to wear 2 masks and you can't even be in the presence, you can't eat or drink in the presence of and they started punishing you. And then it became obvious, and became a complete distraction and unconstitutional behavior. And so I pushed and pushed and pushed. And I will tell you, I'm actually in the middle of a federal lawsuit right now against a company called, and I have no problem saying this, Neuroquin Biosciences out of California. And I have clear evidence, and I am alleging unconstitutional behavior and discrimination. And I do know that based on my actions, I have brought awareness to this within the pharmaceutical industry. I've had people on my show. I had Dr. Robert Malone on my show and others to actually get this information out. And I've had one person in the pharmaceutical industry oppose my views. And then I just rebutted with some simple information, and they were done. That was it. Because they didn't even do any research for themselves. They just put their head in the sand, and that was it. So
was that a private conversation, or was that something like on your show?
No, that was like something on social media.
Okay.
And I've shared some things on social media, and I will continue to do it because, as you can see, they're starting to ramp up again, and they just they just came out with a new one. And so my job is to be a voice where people can't be. And I don't know really anyone inside pharma that stood up to pharma. And I lost my 20-year career over it. And I know that. And I know that I can't go back. But it was worth it to me. And I remember even talking to my boss and saying, I'm going all the way with this. If you have to fire me, fire me. But the truth is the truth, and people's lives are at risk, short term and long term. And we're seeing so much of it right now with how many illnesses are coming out and people dying suddenly. It's real. And so if I can do my part, I have full confidence and peace about doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Well, man, that's great. I really respect your boldness in that. Now, you say you told your boss, if you have to fire me, fire me. Is that what happened? Did you actually get fired?
Well, there's certain information that I can't disclose at this time due to some legal issues. But I'm no longer with one of the companies, and the other company, like I said, I'm in a federal lawsuit, and that I can talk publicly about because we're in the process right now. And I'm happy to share it publicly, and I hope to get it out to as many people as possible.
Why that particular company are you going up against in a lawsuit?
Well, they actually came to me, and it was clear. They made it clear that it was my job. It was a company that came to hire me, and they rushed me through the process. They actually said the job was mine, and it was a done deal. and it went all the way to ready to make an offer. They rushed me through the process because I was considering another company at the time. And I have it all documented, all of it. And then they asked me if I was vaccinated. And then they didn't even have another candidate in the queue. And then they started, they went down that road, and I knew it was coming. So I kept it well documented. And I have full confidence that we will win this case. I'm so thankful because the Pacific Justice Institute picked up my case.
Nice.
So they're a national firm. So they're putting their resources behind it. So I'll win.
That's key, man. I mean, so many good, well-intentioned people, they get involved in these lawsuits, but they don't realize how corrupt the courts, the judges, the juries, whatever, the people involved can be. But if you've got good legal help that are on your team, that is huge, because I think a lot of people, they just think, well, I'm being honest and I've got the facts, so of course I'm going to win. But they're not properly prepped and provisioned for what's going to face them. So kudos to you for doing your work to get the right people on board.
And you're right, because the company that I'm going against, I'm assuming that they just assumed I was just an individual, and they could intimidate me and they could push me away. And they tried it. They tried some little things in their legal process, and they tried to be cute with, oh, he didn't do this and he didn't do that. And they used legal terminology. And then I brought in, at the nick of time, I got a big home run hitter to back me up. And I'm willing to go all the way. And I honestly, I hope it goes to trial, because I will tell the story and I will stand up. And I actually think they'll get embarrassed and shamed in trial. And I'll do whatever I can legally to document the process, because I even considered a docuseries to document the process so that people can know that you can stand up for something that's wrong. And there are ways to do it. It's tough at times. It hurts at times. There's risk involved. But if you're called, you're called. And this is something that I was called to.
Man, I love that, dude. I love the boldness. And, nothing brings on boldness, like I said at the beginning of the show, is seeing your potential end in front of you. It's kind of like, what else do I have to lose? And I mentioned I was going to read a Bible verse, and this one I read this morning, and I actually thought of you, Chad, knowing a bit of your story. And it says, it's Proverbs 20, verse 5. It says, the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. And I think insight comes a lot of times from clarity, and nothing can get us clear as when we are in, real life danger. So share with us a bit about, your past 4.5 years ago, the diagnosis you received, and how that led into what you're doing today.
I'll tell this story to anyone who will listen as far as I can go, because it's a God story, and he gave me this message to share. And so about 4.5 years ago, I got diagnosed with cancer. I had a lump in my neck. I ignored it for a while, and I wasn't really sure. I finally went to the doctor, and I was someone who was, I would say, pretty relatively healthy in terms of, diet, exercise, things like that. And the doctor was actually surprised. He's like, hey, this is probably nothing. And so did the biopsy, and then he called me and said, I'm sorry, this is cancer. And you never want to get that phone call.
Yeah, right.
So I got it, and I still had confidence. I was a man of faith. I prayed for things in my life and others' lives where I've seen miracles and healings. And so I was confident in the Lord and had peace that passed all understanding. And that's a real application to that verse. And so I had one surgery, and then I had a second surgery. And then the doctor said, hey, Chad, in 30 days, we're going to do a scan. And if we find something in that 30 days, it's not good. Because that means that it had spread already in just 30 days. And so, okay, I was feeling confident, still confident. And 30 days went by, do the scan, the doctor calls. I believe I was sitting in a Home Depot parking lot, and the doctor tried to do some small talk. And I said, Doc, just cut to the chase. Yeah. And he says, Chad, I'm sorry, but it's already spread. And at that point, it hit me. It finally caught up with me. The emotion caught up with me. It hit me hard, like, man, am I going to die? Yeah. And I've been married over 20 years, 4 awesome kids. And the doctor said, well, to keep you, to preserve you, we could try chemo, radiation, and a third surgery to cut out part of your tongue. And so I was pretty devastated, and I went to a deep depression for probably 2 or 3 days. And here's where it gets interesting. I'm like, okay, I can't just lay here. I can't do this to my wife and kids. I gotta be a man at minimum. I gotta be strong for my family, and I gotta fight this thing out. But the way I fought it was this way, Jeremy. I went before the Lord and I said, God, why did you create me? And I got what I thought was an answer. I know now it was an answer, but at the time I was hesitant, but I was desperate. So the idea I got was I was going to create a social network for Christians to connect together, learn together, and achieve together God's purposes in society. And we were going to base it around a concept called the 7 Mountains. And so I took this idea and I made a 90-minute movie trailer on my computer. I did a script. I did an edit.
Wait, a 90-minute or 90-second?
Sorry. Yeah, good clarification. 90-second. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a long trailer, man. How long's the real film?
My friends would have been pissed if I sent them that. No, 90-second. My friends can handle 90 seconds. And so a 90-second movie trailer about the future of my life with this idea in mind. And I submitted it to them, and with the understanding, agree with me that I'm going to live and not die, and I'm going to fulfill this purpose. And so at that point, everything changed, Jeremy. Again, I was supposed to get chemo, radiation, and a third surgery. And everything changed. I had some divine clues that something was happening and changing. But the short version is, after I did all this, I ended up going to MD Anderson in Houston, Texas, to get another opinion and just to seek out other alternatives. And that before I went there, my current doctor specialist said it's either, he said 99 or 95% cancer. And I remember going into the doctor's office in Houston, Texas. They had 11 appointments lined up for me. They were going to make about $1 million off me. Went into the first appointment. My wife was there. He looked at me, he examined me, he looked at some report on the computer, and he said, Chad, I don't think there's anything wrong with you. And so my wife and I were stunned. And that's what I said. I went, I'm sorry, what? And my eyes got big. I looked, I made eye contact with my wife.
Yeah.
And she was like, what? And so he goes, I'm going to do an ultrasound just to verify it. So he does an ultrasound. And I remember the nurse coming in. She opened the curtain after the ultrasound. She says, okay, you can go now. And I said, well, what do you mean? You mean I can go now? Like you didn't find anything? Or you can go now. You'll call me later with the results. And she says, Chad, we found nothing. And so the doctor called me and says, Chad, I'm canceling all your appointments. Go home. I don't think you're going to ever have a problem with this ever again. And that was 4.5 years ago. And so
how long was that after the first diagnosis where they were telling you they might have to cut out your tongue and all that?
Well, the first diagnosis, from the first diagnosis was probably about 9 months. From the diagnosis where they wanted to do chemo, radiation, and all that kind of stuff, that was probably 2 months.
So you'd had multiple confirmations that cancer did exist in your body. That you weren't misdiagnosed, correct?
It is a slight possibility that I was misdiagnosed, but man, that would be a major misdiagnosis.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What I do know for sure is that God saved me and gave me a way out where I was heading for chemo, radiation, third surgery, and potential death. And that translated to absolutely nothing. And at that moment, I knew that purpose can save your life.
Wow. Were you one more question on this? Because anytime there's a miraculous story, I'm kind of a doubting Thomas. I want to know details. Was there, did you have symptoms? Is that why you originally went in? Like, were there things you were battling? Wow.
Yeah. Well, I had a big lump in my neck.
Yeah. Okay. So you had the lump.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty big. It was a pretty big lump. I mean, it was kind of like, maybe like, felt like an acorn. And I ignored it. I don't know why. Yeah. I just did. I was just a man. And
typical guy thing. Like, it'll go away.
Yeah.
Ingrown hair.
Yeah. They stuck the needle right into the big lump. I mean, it was there.
Unbelievable.
And then surgery, they found it in my throat, and they found it. So they confirmed that as well. And then they did another scan and said it was there. It had moved to the other side of my throat. And so that's when I remember sitting in a meeting in Washington, D.C. I was at the Trump Hotel, actually, in the Lincoln. And I was watching a guy, a friend of mine, mentor, his name's Lance Wallnow, and he was talking about purpose, and was a small group of us. And I remember thinking, this means nothing to me because I think I'm going to die. And I remember emailing my doctor in that meeting and saying, what % chance do you think you sure this is cancer? And that's when he replied, but doctors don't put that kind of stuff in writing. He either said 99% or 95%. I can't remember, but it was one of the two. And I'm like, okay. And then that's when everything changed.
Wow, man. So tell me a little bit about the after effects of that. So you go away, you and your wife, I'm sure you're celebrating. You're probably scared that what if this new diagnosis where they're telling me I'm fine is wrong? I'm sure there's all kind of things. And then there's also that celebration and thankfulness to God that have you healed me? Tell me about that piece of it.
Yeah. Someone asked me this the other day on a show, and they said, did you get to like this sudden relief? Like,
yeah.
And I said, because of the trauma that was associated with it, I felt like the faucet kind of just turned on and the pressure began to release. And I don't think it was like, because it was such a stunning outcome. It was like, wait a minute, what? It was so stunning that it was like, are you sure? What? And then so because of that, it took some time. And so much so, like there's a story in the Bible where, when David, like for example, David got anointed by the priest, the high priest, to be king. But guess what? He didn't become king right away. He actually went through hell for a long time before he ultimately became king. And so even for me, like we got an onslaught of this spiritual enemy on our life that even things when I got cleared of cancer, things in our life got even worse. And so like just accumulation kept coming. It was a spiritual attack, one after another. And to the point where people felt like, man, are you like Job or something? What's going on? And it was terrible. But so I didn't even launch this idea for like, I didn't get released by God till like 4 years later, even though it burned in me that I was going to do this. But the Lord didn't release me until like 4 years later to actually start the Nexus Mountain Network.
Wow. Tell me about that, because there's a very specific mission involved. You've shared before that, you weren't a tech guy. You're not a guy that develops apps, but you went from a cancer diagnosis to what sounds to me to be a miraculous healing, to God laying this new purpose in your heart to do this that you felt for a long time. Connect those dots. How do you go from one to the other there?
Well, timing is really important. Obedience to God is really important. There was times where I wanted to rush into doing something special, especially after getting this new lease on life.
Yeah.
You would think that I would be like, all right, let's go, everyone, let's all in,
Yeah.
And I had some growing up probably to do. I had some more trials to go through. I had some maturity to go through. I had to fight for more. And then the onslaught of it's time came into my life. I had my first angel encounter in my life last year. I had a school teacher come up and did not know I had suffering for cancer and did not know I had this idea in my mind, in my heart, and prophesied and said, I have a word of the Lord and I believe it's for you right now. And she prophesied. She says, the Lord says you're to build a network and you're to build it now. I mean, it was at a parent-teacher conference, and like when she told me, the hair stood up on my arms and sweat went down my back and tears filled my eyes, because in that moment, Jeremy, I realized the idea was from God and that He truly did give us a purpose for being created. And then I had all the confidence in the world at that point. Fear of failure came off, fear of man came off, and I went all in. And one of the first things I did was I built this app. And the app was to be this tool to support the network.
Was that the angel encounter? You said angel. Is that a figure of speech for a teacher that prophesied over you, or are you okay?
No, it was a completely separate encounter. So I that was two separate things. The fact that they're probably like a month apart. And I you know how like people they tell the story about being they have an experience of an angel, or maybe the Lord visits them, and it's almost like this rush of fear that comes over you because you're not sure what is going on.
Yeah.
And I had that moment. I was like, and I was like shocked, and I was shaking because it was kind of scary. And then I realized it was an angel, and then I was just moved and touched by God that, okay, let's do this.
Do you mind sharing more about that? Is that okay? I mean,
If you want to, yeah.
I
Hopefully
would
this.
really, I mean, yes, yeah, my listeners would love to hear it because I would
Okay.
love to hear it. I don't care what my listener, I want to know.
Okay. Well, it's a little unusual. That's why I didn't share it right off the bat. But
Okay.
I don't really share it publicly that much. But see, when I went through, we were going through cancer, then we were going through more trials. One of the things that I carried was shame of not being stronger, not holding my ground spiritually, because I had called myself a man of God and all this stuff. And so the Lord had been showing me to help pull me out of the trauma. One of the things he had been sharing with me that I chose not to believe fully was that this onslaught was an attack of the enemy. And he used the scripture to tell me that, the man that builds his house upon the rock will stand. And the Lord was trying to encourage me by saying, you built your house upon the rock, but what happened is the rains came, the floods came, and the winds blew. And this is in scripture. And so when that comes, if you build your house upon the rock, you'll still have the foundation to stand, even if you have damage to your house. And so I had damage to my house. I had damage because of the trauma and the onslaught, the attacks and all these things. But the Lord was telling me it wasn't your fault. It was an attack of the enemy. And I still didn't choose to believe it because I was still stuck in that place. And I was trying to climb my way out. And then the angel encounter happened. So this angel, I'll just tell you a little bit of it. The one point of significance to this story was when the angel came, he spoke to me what I thought was in a dream, because I'm a dreamer and the Lord speaks to me in dreams. In fact, the Lord shows me things sometimes in advance in dreams where I see the future, sometimes in dreams, and it's a mercy of the Lord, and I actually take it seriously. I record these dreams, and I'm prepared for somewhere down the road for something to happen, and then I'll know how to act based on something the Lord's already showed me in advance. It's all over the Bible. And so in this particular moment, I thought I was in a dream, and then when I woke up, I realized it was an angel. Well, one of the things that the angel said to me was, he started to speak from the book of Luke in the Bible. And in the story of the Luke in the Bible, when I woke up, I actually opened my Bible. I'm like, I have to know what the angel was saying from the word of God. And so I started moving through Luke, and I was like, I'm not finding what he was saying. And I was confused. And I felt like the Lord say, what time did you wake up from that encounter? And I remember when I had the encounter, I touched my phone. When I touched my phone, it was 6:44 or 6:46, something like that. So I went, oh. So I went to Luke 6:44, 46. And it was the one place in the Bible that the Lord could have took me that would have had more meaning than any other place. And it was the exact story I just told you. It was the man that builds his house upon the rock.
Oh, wow.
Builds it on the foundation. I began to weep because I've been to realize the Lord was speaking to me. And then in that moment, the angel was actually mouth to mouth with me. So much so that I could feel the wet of the lips, and he was speaking to me. And I was like, man, this is weird. So I remember going down in the living room, and I began to look, is this biblical, that mouth to mouth thing biblical? And I believe it's in Leviticus, maybe chapter 12, where it says, it's talking about Moses, and he says, to my prophets I will speak in dreams and visions, but to Moses I will speak mouth to mouth.
Huh.
And I realized the Lord was speaking to me mouth to mouth. And this was like a part of the process of the Lord saying, I'm preparing you. I'm getting you ready. It's just about time to launch.
Wow, man, that's beautiful. I'm so glad that you've had that experience that I'm sure gave you a lot of encouragement and boldness to do what you're doing. Let's talk about Nexus, man. Let's talk about the 7 mountains, what they are. I'm still getting acquainted to it. I've taken the quiz, yeah, one of my main ones is media. But let's talk about that a little bit. What led you to 7 mountains and that idea?
Yeah, the 7 mountains actually came from an idea of my mentor and friend, Dr. Lance Wallnow. He came to our church once, and I was like, whoa, this is me. This message resonates with me. And the idea is that there are 7 categories, whether it can be called 7 spheres, it can be 7 mountains, that 7 mountains shape culture. So these 7 areas are, like you mentioned, you're doing media right now: media, education, business, religion, education. Let's see, what am I missing here?
Was government one of them?
Family and government.
Right.
So those 7 areas that Christians can be called to, versus just sitting and complaining about society. It's like, I can get involved as a Christian in one of these areas. And so what I did is I took my background as a professional development trainer in pharmaceutical, and I created a assessment, DISC and Strengths Finder and all that kind of stuff. I created a 7 mountains assessment that you can take for free, by the way, if you download the Nexus Mountain Network app, and it's all automated, and it will tell you what your primary and secondary mountains are for this season of your life, not for the totality of your life, but right now, because that's what we're focused on. Is, I wrote a book about it, is what are you supposed to be doing right now, and what steps should you be taking? Because sometimes we think of the big picture of, but I'm saying right now, because sometimes you can change these mountains.
Right.
And so it's biblical. We've seen it even in modern day examples with like President Trump, or, like my mentor, Dr. Lance Wellnow, he's changed different things too. And so we help people to collaborate within these mountains. And so, for example, I talked about the Nexus Mountain Network being much more than an app. So recently, my wife actually uncovered the promotion of pedophilia, rape, and incest at a local high school. And so because of Nexus, we had connections in media, in the news. We had people in government and local government. We had people in education. And within a snap of a finger, we got these people involved. We had the local initiative in the high school stopped in 24 hours. We grabbed a group of people from Nexus. We went to the school board in downtown Charlotte in the auditorium, gave fiery speeches, and caused change. Our story actually went national. And what we're trying to do is be able to create these easy paths for collaboration within city-based communities to get results that God wants accomplished.
Man, that is so cool. And, like I'd said earlier, we're using it within Warrior MBS as the platform, because you also have the ability to do communities. But I'm interested in what you just said. I want to screen share real quick. So I've got it on the Bible scripture that I read there. But, okay, so this is not on the app. This is on the computer, which you can also access, the majority of the features. But walk me through, if you can, because I think a lot of the audience will see this and be like, man, I want to join this. I want to understand how I could be connected to people that, feel the same as me and are interested in these same categories. So let's say that happened in my hometown. And I want, I found out this pedophilia instance was going on at a school. How would I connect with people in my area using this app?
Hey, great. This is a great trial. This is a good run. So if you look right now, you can see search members.
Yep.
So if you click on that, and so up at the top right, you see filters. So right now you're seeing everybody in the network. And then you can search by, let's say, education, if you want to do primary mountain education.
So I type it in. Yep, there they are. So government, media, education. Yep.
Yeah. And you can pick any location. You can pick state, go down to state and pick it.
Okay, we'll go to Tennessee. Okay, there's three teachers or educators right there.
Yep. So you could start, if you wanted something like that, you could do the same thing with media. We have a strong presence. We established a prototype in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that's where a lot of our people are. But now we're growing. We have, we got thousands of people in the network, and then we've got probably like 20 to 25 nations represented already in the network. And so you can look at any one of these profiles and people put their websites. You can connect with them. You can send them a direct message if you want. Like right there, you see, let's see, Wendy Pett, for example. If you pick her, in fact, I met her at NRB as well, at the same time I met you.
Yeah.
And so you can actually connect or follow these people. You can send them direct message. You can see that little drop down under her name, and you can see more information about her website and her program. I was actually just on her show.
Really?
As well.
Okay.
And so she's doing some really cool things too in health as well. And so these are like down there, Elizabeth Johnson. She is amazing. I'm actually just about to.
I saw you do a live show with her on within Nexus Mountain, which was really cool. I did not know you had that feature till I actually saw it streaming.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's what we do. We interview live inside the app. So she's inspirational. She has 1 million followers on social media right now. And she's one of the people who stood up. So we interview those people. We have the show to do it. So we want to, as part of the learn process. So their 3 pillars are connect, learn, and achieve. And so you can do all of that in there. You can create your own groups, private groups. That's what you're doing. That's how you're leveraging it.
Yes. And let me show that real quick, just for those who, would like to join this. And then they have a community. They're looking for a place for it to be hosted. So right here within communities. Now this is a newer feature. So I'll just go to the regular groups. Why don't you tell me, Chad,
I think let's show your community. I think that'd be a good idea.
All right, cool.
Just another functionality. You can click on communities and click on you. So here, all this stuff is he's using, leveraging the technology to do his Warrior MBS. And so he is Christian in there. They're connecting. You can see that all those stuff. He's using it, working out and their meals and all that kind of stuff. So that's just the way that Jeremy's using it. There's so many different possibilities to use this. Like you can see right there, if you click on the job portal, this is a new feature of Nexus, and you can see where actually you can post a job. So Christian employers and employees can connect with one another to work together, even professionally. So we're continuing to grow and expand. We're doing events, which is fantastic, exciting. We're looking forward to doing that. We have a new event coming up here in October in California that we're going to be doing. And so we do local events. So if you click even right there, it says upcoming events, Jeremy, and that blue one.
Okay. Yep.
So we host all of our events in here, and you can find out what's going on, and you can be a part of local events or national events or shows and all that.
Nice, man. It's fantastic. It meets a big need because, if you're researching different social medias to be a part of, you'll find out that LinkedIn is one of the most woke, one of the most censored in terms of who their leadership is over there. So we definitely need something like this, and it's growing. I mean, I think it's growing fast. What's the future of what's your long-term plan for this network?
So what I'd love to be able to do is establish like we have this prototype in Charlotte that is definitely working. We have a community in Charlotte where we get together on a regular basis, and then when issues arise, we are able to collaborate and get things done. I would love to see these communities in cities throughout the United States and then ultimately the world, but where people are coming together. We have people that are interested in doing these kind of communities within their cities so that they can act quickly to ultimately get to our third pillar, which is achieve.
So you find each other with the technology, but then you actually get activated in person locally together based on these, finding each other with the filters.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
So we're looking to grow. We want to grow. We want to have more Christians in there. We have not done any marketing. I say that loosely, like this show is marketing, obviously, but it's selective. And so we're interested in quality over quantity because we just don't want any Yahoo being in there. We're not really trying to be a social media company. We're trying to be a network of Christians that get results in society.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And I want to bring up one more feature. Let me screen share one more time. So guys, Chad hasn't said this, but I'm going to offer it. Chad is not doing this for profit. I don't even know that it has a nonprofit. So this is he's come out of pocket to make this happen. So if you see this and you're like, man, I want to support this mission because this is important, and it definitely is, you can go right here once you sign up and click that Give tab. It's super easy, to donate, and you can find out a little bit more about how that works right here. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I think supporting guys like you that are on a mission and have put it into action. You didn't keep it in a theory or in the back of your head. You actually did it, dude. So I want to commend you for that, and I also want to give people a chance to know where they can, throw a little cash your way to help out.
I appreciate that a lot. And I want to say this final message to people
Yes.
about it is, I'm not concerned about how big it gets. And there's a reason I'm saying this. I'm concerned about the way I measure success is my obedience to God. My success is not determined by how big like Nexus gets, for example, because Nexus may not even be my personal end game. It's just, but he has my yes. And so I tell this because if you have something in your heart and in that you're supposed to do, the most important thing is to obey that and not worry about the outcome, the end game results. Like we have people inside Nexus right now who we support who are running for office that are Christians, and sometimes they win and sometimes they don't. But they feel like God told them to do it. And so that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people who are willing to say, Lord, you have my yes, and to be around other people who are saying, I'm saying yes. And you'll be surprised how courageous people are when they are surrounded by other people who are saying yes.
Man, that's fantastic and very true. There's no doubt about it. There's power, there's confidence that comes in having people around you that are affirming and with you on mission. So, Chad, thanks again, man, for your platform, for your boldness, and your story is. I didn't know how cool that was, man. Between an angel, a prophecy, a diagnosis that you're probably gonna die, and then you're healed. I mean, it's incredible, dude. So you got quite a story, my man. And I wish you all the best. And we will be talking, I guess, pretty much every day since I'm on the network.
Yep. Praise God. Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chad.